Have you ever had a moment or an experience, or maybe even a whole period of your life, where you were in the cold of solitude? Or maybe even a whole period of your life, where you were in the cold of solitude? Every single event along that journey seemed to be manipulated by a magical power and takes up most of the space in our memories, making it impossible to erase even if we wanted to. I guess we have many times wished, if only we could lose my memory, it would be great. Or if only we could be like fish, with a memory as short as 7 snaps of the finger, this life would pass more easily. A few years ago I heard an old man share his perspective on his own life. Throughout our lives, he said, there will always be good decades and bad decades. I remember being very shocked when I heard about this. For many of us, 10 years seems like a very long time to strive for our life's big goals. However, how can we find light in the midst of that dark decade? How can I endure my difficulties? We always realize that this life is full of ups and downs, but sometimes these challenging events are randomly arranged and happen at the same time. Perhaps the characteristic, unpredictable, is the first lesson, and is also the only lesson that requires each student, like us, to study diligently and contemplate many times throughout my life about this variability and impermanence. When our world is turned upside down, it's normal to feel a lack of joy. Health problems, loss, breakups, housing difficulties, natural disasters. The list of severe stressors and traumatic events is long. Most adults will experience many serious traumas and losses throughout their lives. Loss of joy in these contexts is part of the natural test of each of our experiences. Whether the source of disruption in our lives is a global emergency, a personal tragedy, or both, living through difficult times can severely damage our mood, health, and outlook on life. It can always leave us feeling helpless and overwhelmed by prolonged stress and anxiety. We can grieve for all we have lost, be overwhelmed by a series of difficult emotions, conflicted or unsure about how to move forward with your life. We may even feel like our lives are completely out of control, and we truly feel powerless to influence whatever might happen next. For example, after a falling out with a family member, we may spend our days like a zombie. Life is reduced to crying, being tired, losing sleep, and not being able to focus on anything but the loss. It is extremely difficult to feel anything but the overwhelming chaos in our lives. Indeed, the psychological effects of chaos can manifest in many ways, including physical symptoms like insomnia, headaches, and digestive problems. Over time, chronic stress can increase your risk of chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, and depression. However, when we understand how chaos affects our mental and physical health, we may push ourselves to find strategies to cope during those bad times. Although there is no way to avoid sadness, adversity, or suffering in life, but there are ways to ease these difficulties and regain a sense of control. Focusing on resilience is one of our top priorities. as we deal with these constant losses, no matter how great the consequences. Building resilience is essential, can help us adapt better to life-changing events, cope with turbulent times and recover from hardship and tragedy. But why do some people always seem to be better able to cope during these difficult times than others? Although each of US's circumstances are different, but the truth is that people with resilience tend to be more tolerant of the emotional trauma caused by difficult times. If we have been more sensitive to feelings of suffering and found it difficult to cope with difficulties or adversities, it's important not to see it as some sort of character flaw. Resilience is not a manly quality, and it is not fixed. It is an ongoing process that requires building effort and persistence over time. Unless we have faced adversity in life before, otherwise, we would not have the need or opportunity to develop this resilience. Drawing on past experiences can help us deal with the challenges we face today. Yet, even when we have struggled to cope with adversity in the past, at least we can identify some ways to deal with no that are actually useful, such as trying to numb your emotions with drugs or alcohol. Although it's often hard to imagine what good will come after we learn to cope with those bad experiences, building resilience can help us find more positives, some extreme in the difficulties we encounter. Overcoming them can teach us to distinguish what is important to ourselves and the world around us. It will strengthen our determination and deepen our empathy, and at the same time help us evolve and grow as true human beings. However, few people can complete the recovery course quickly, because the human mind is always deeply biased by previous experiences, makes us even dangerously slow to understand and adapt when faced with new situations. So, to successfully escape this mental trap and complete that recovery training, we must be willing to prioritize acting and thinking differently. At the very least, we must reconsider some inappropriate views from previous lessons. The first aspect we can pay attention to is the lesson of managing rapidly changing circumstances. First, we need to accept that life is truly unpredictable and unfair. So, don't expect things to be different. And don't cry just because your glass of milk is divided, or even if someone else spills your glass of milk. We cannot undo the past, but we can at least be in control of how we choose to react to it. Second, we can lose everything, including freedom, in a single moment due to the actions of individuals, social forces, illness, death, or natural disaster. There is only one thing that no one can take away. While we are alive, that is what we have in our brains. So, develop it carefully and respectfully. Educate yourself as much as possible, both in knowledge and self-awareness. Third, the voice of reason is easily drowned out by screaming emotions. Reassure it so reason can be heard and acted upon promptly. Fourth, although material wealth brings comfort and joy, life, health, meaningful work, hope, and love are all that really matter. Don't let attachment to money or things get in the way of these essentials for happiness, and willing to give up everything to protect ourselves or those we love if necessary. The final aspect is the lesson of getting along with others. Because no one can do it alone, we need to take responsibility for our attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors no matter what situation we are in. Instead of suppressing them, let's understand them so we can learn from their consequences, to improve ourselves and our results. Through the way we identify ourselves, it also helps us to clearly indicate what is the appropriate way to interact with the people around us. Just love deeply and know that someone truly cares, and our commitment to happiness makes us struggle to survive in dire circumstances. Although life is not always fair, it is a gift that always deserves to be celebrated. These lessons show how we can do things a little better, no matter how harsh the circumstances are. What gives us the greatest treasure of life, other than love? That is hope.